everybody, welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I'm Fox.
I'm Dez.
Yeah, so lots of things have happened for us gaming-wise recently.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy and awesome.
Des, what have you been up to?
I just finished Hellblade and Sundered, so it's November 1st right now.
Yes.
And so when, I don't know when this is going to release, but when we're recording, it's November 1st. Just finished those two games, and this may be something that I want to talk about in its own entire episode, but Hellblade is one of my top 5 all-time favorite games.
Wow, that is impressive.
And when I say top 5, I don't say because I think it's 5 or 4. It's because all of those 5 games are...
They might as well be, yeah.
Yeah, they might as well all be number 1. So,
yeah.
But I cried on... You can hear me on the microphone talking like this.
What a pansy.
I know, right?
Getting emotionally involved in a story about characters that you like.
It was beautiful. I've never felt more personally involved in a game. And they purposely do that. Senua very often looks directly at the camera. So she's looking directly at you.
Yeah, breaking the fourth wall in a non-hilarious way is not something video games do very often.
And it does it so well.
Very cool.
I kind of told you earlier, Fox, that I think I'm going to do a video about how it represents mental health so successfully.
Sure.
But like one small part of that is there's a narrator throughout the game.
Right.
And she's kind of like describing to you what's going on with Senua, what's going on in her head. And she says things like, because if you're going to accept that what Senua is experiencing is not reality, you may have to accept that your reality is not real either.
Ooh.
And little things like that.
Question everything.
But it's not until like much later, maybe even the end of the game, that you actually realize that this is not a voice in Senua's head. This quote unquote narrator is a voice in your head as the player. You have a voice in your head explaining the story to you. And as a player, we just think, oh, it's the narrator.
Right.
But in truth, it's literally a voice in your head just talking to you throughout the whole game.
Cool.
And it's so well done. That's just one of the very small things. Like, you experience a voice in your head throughout the entire game.
That's cool.
It's so well done.
Yeah.
How about you, Fox?
I have finished, since our last recording, which was a week ago, I have gotten and beaten Super Mario Odyssey.
In 1 week.
That is, well, no, 5 days since I got it Friday.
5 days.
But that's mostly because, like all Mario games, you don't need to do everything or even a whole lot to actually finish the story. They have a minimum number of moons in this that you need to collect. I got a lot more than that, but I didn't do everything. But here's a story about it.
Here's a story I'd like to... Never mind.
Yeah. So, last night, I played a lot of it. Got very close to the end and knew, like, I had one more episode to record left. But I wanted to go to bed, and I decided I go to bed now, and then I get up early and finish it off. So,
How mature of you.
I got up at 4:30 this morning to play Super Mario Odyssey, to record the last, like, hour of the game, which I did. And it was awesome. It was so cool. Now, while I was recording, though, the entire time, or at least from close to the start of the recording, I had, like, weird audio issues every couple seconds. It was just like the sound would just go away for half a second and then come back. And it was very strange. I didn't know what was going on. I hoped it, like, as I was playing, as I was talking, recording, I was just like, well, I hope I hear this. And I figured it was just because I had turned off the system and turned it back on to see if that could get rid of it. Because I've had something similar before, and it did get rid of it. I had like a crackling when I first started. Anyway, well, I finished that hour of recording, and I had nothing. I had a 19-minute video. I had audio, fine. My audio, because I record that separate. That was all great. I had a 19-minute video that should have been an hour long that, after 6 minutes, started just doing 3-second bursts of recording. And so basically what it seemed like was, after 3 seconds, when the audio cut out, that was the recording software cutting out and then coming back on. I have no idea why that happened.
Wow.
It was terrible. Just deleted it. I was very angry.
And that's the end of the game?
That was the end of the game. End of the story of the game. I was very upset.
Yes.
For a while. And then I realized, and it's like most games nowadays where you don't, like, I couldn't go back unless I had another save point. I only had one, like, save file, so it was just...
Right.
And there's only 5 total save files you can use. And one of them my wife is using because she also is playing it because she loves it.
That's
so
awesome.
I only had 3 extra. So I was never doing that because it was never an issue. So I realized I can't even go back and just do it again. And I was upset again.
Yes.
But then I realized I could just play through it again.
Is that seriously your plan?
I started this after... Okay, so I finished it.
Tell me you've beaten Super Mario Odyssey twice now.
Went to work for 2 hours, drove my bus, got back at 8 o'clock, told my wife, I hope you don't want to leave right now. And she's like, no, not really. I just want to chill. And, like, I went back and got through probably 45% of the game. Just doing bare minimum.
In one sitting?
In one sitting.
How much do you love it?
I love it. This is my report on how much I like the game. I love it so much that I was angry for a little bit, but then realized I get to play it again. Woo! And so now I am playing Super Mario Odyssey again just so I can get back to that ending so I can record it again.
That's awesome.
I will have that done by no later than tomorrow afternoon because I have a field trip. I'm going to bring it. I'm going to play it all day.
That's insane.
That's how much I love Odyssey. It is such a fun game in many ways because the story is, okay, whatever, goofy story about Bowser wanting to marry Peach.
Right.
But it just not tricks you, it does something new or weird or unexpected, A, for Super Mario games,
right,
and B, for itself. Every couple seconds, like every level has something weird to it, where like,
that's fun.
There's a part where like it takes something you've already done, but that just presents it in a new way. And what I was thinking this morning was that this game is the king of, what is it? What's the term? Negative opportunity space? Is that what it's called? Negative. There's a term for like when you're playing a game and you say, oh, I can go up this path. There's probably something up there. Or you spent like 10 minutes trying to make this difficult jump on a platformer. And cause you're like, there has to be something over there. And then when you get there, there's nothing there. And you're like, why did they even let this be in the game? Right. I just wasted my life. This seems in Super Mario Odyssey, 99 times out of 100, if you can get somewhere, there's something there for you to get.
That's awesome.
They played the game recognizing that their players are going to try to get to that place, and so we should probably reward them for it. Even if it's just 3 coins, it's not nothing. This game is the king of that, and Odyssey is amazing.
That's really cool.
I'll say this. I've played 2 major games on the Switch. Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey.
Right.
I've played the demo for Octopath Traveler, and I played another game, SteamWorld Dig 2, which wasn't really a Switch game. It's like they just ported it to it. That being said, those 2 games are better by far than all of the rest of the games I've played this year.
Man.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Some games are great. Horizon was really fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, played all the way through it. I can't even think of any other games that I played right now. I mean, Final Fantasy 12, sure, I love it, but it's not like it's a new game or anything. The Switch, in my opinion, so far, has won 2017 in my gaming life with 2 games.
That's well done, Nintendo.
Yeah, they have done a good job. I want more games, and luckily they're releasing more.
I mean, speaking of the story, and we should probably get on our topic pretty soon here, but...
No, Super Mario Odyssey. I'm going to go through every single level, tell you why I love each one. There's a dinosaur.
You can be
a realistic-looking Tyrannosaurus Rex. Fighting chain chomps.
I am watching your playthrough of it, and what I loved about it is the game begins, like literally begins with Peach and Bowser in their wedding tux and dress.
Yes.
And Peach has a crown,
a tiara
with eyes on it, like that's a sentient tiara.
Guess what her name is?
Tiara.
Real original on that one there.
A sentient tiara. and then they fly away, and you as Mario have to save them. No, nothing is explained before
Right,
that.
absolutely not.
But you don't care.
It doesn't matter.
That is exactly
It's
enough.
very easy to understand because they rely on your outside knowledge of Mario.
Right, exactly.
And it's okay for them to do that.
And I love it.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love it. So
Anyway,
we also recently
played another game,
Cuphead.
Cuphead.
And I also loved that. It reminded me a lot of Sundered, if Sundered was more of a shooter than a melee game, but way fun. Had a great time. I had a really good time playing it. How about you, Fox?
I had a different experience.
Almost as if you played a different game.
Pretty much. I mean, playing Cuphead with a keyboard and mouse is a very different experience than playing it with a controller.
Did you play it with a controller a little bit?
No, but I could tell.
You said specifically you were going to do that.
I know, but I was playing Odyssey instead, and I have no regrets.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, we played Cuphead.
We
You
did.
all know what Cuphead is. It's a pretty recent game. Old school cartoon looking graphics,
Right.
very well done graphics, music and all of that.
Yeah.
It's a platformer / just boss fight game. Like it's got an interesting
To
play
2D
style
side
to it.
scroller.
Yeah, 2D side scroller. You're either fighting a boss or going through a run and gun platforming level.
Right, and most of it is just boss fighting.
Essentially, yeah.
But it's known for its difficulty.
Yes, difficult. They've attempted to recreate old school games in a way. Yeah. And our experiences with it were very different.
Yes, they were.
Partially based on the hardware we were using to play it.
Right.
But it inspired a conversation between us.
Yeah.
And we want to continue talking about that here.
So, Fox, tell me what your issue with Cuphead was.
Okay, I have a very, very specific issue with the game.
Yeah,
I don't think
remember
it's
this.
bad. I think it's very well made.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did a great job in pretty much every aspect of that game. What they were setting out to do, they accomplished 100%.
Right.
I have a very specific issue. We played 6 levels. 2 levels for each episode. We recorded 3 episodes. That last level that we played...
I'm going to say when Fox Rage quit, but Fox Rage quit actually before that.
Yeah, a couple levels before.
And I kind of forced him to play more.
/ I accepted to continue playing. So in that last level, it was one of the what they call run and gun platforming episode or levels. Mm-hmm. Half of it is basically trying to just dodge enemies, get past them. The other half is platforming. Very specific platforming.
Jumping
it's actually
from
the
platform to
easier
platform.
section of the game.
Right.
And usually, actually in every single level, you had to beat the level without me because I died every single time.
Right.
Until this this run of this level, which is probably run of 17,000 because this is when we quit. But got to that second
I want to
part.
be clear, there's no we in quitting here. There's no
Okay,
we.
that's fair. It was me. So, to paint the picture, in the second half, you are jumping on leaves that are held up by mosquito-looking things. After you jump on each leaf, you have to get off quickly because then there will be a fireball that comes up and kills that mosquito, and that leaf will disappear. So if you're on it, you'll fall, of course. You have to do some very specific platforming, be able to tell when to... just classic platforming.
Yeah.
Until you get to the very end of the level. Literally, you are at the extreme end of the level. And there are more of those mosquitoes. And when you have a stable platform and you see a bunch of them, you have to be like, okay, I need to prepare myself. This is how my mind was working. I need to jump quickly. Like, you need to get through it because they're going to be disappearing. So I did exactly that. I jumped very quickly across these mosquito leaves and then just kept jumping. And I leapt to my death. Well, as I was leaping that final leap, what I assume was a boss came up from the from the bottom of the screen. Mm-hmm. And as I was falling to my death, realized, oh, those mosquitoes are not disappearing. They don't get killed like every other one that has happened so far. And that was basically the final straw for me. Before that, you could say I would say it was always my fault that I died. I wanted to blame the game, as I always do.
Okay, I want to make sure that... Okay, we're going to put next to each other your recording from when we played Cuphead and this recording right now, because part of our conversation that night was a little bit more than just that one moment.
I'm being honest.
That's good.
Sure.
I'm glad.
I'm being honest here.
I'm glad.
It was always my fault. They had real tight controls. Whatever. I respect it.
So
until this last one. Okay, I feel like I'm just saying the same things. Maybe not. Maybe in the heat of the moment, I was lame and petty. I'm still going to be a little petty, though. So...
More petty than Tom.
Yeah. Well, so, my issue right there was that the game did not give me a signal in any way that what I was about to jump on, the platforms, would be acting differently than the ones that I had jumped on before. They looked exactly the same.
Right.
They were floating there like you would before. They
even had other things, like little log things that were moving back and forth, and those you could stand on as long as you wanted.
Yeah, those would stand still. They used the same sprite, the same, visual...
Mosquito thing.
Yeah, mosquito thing to jump on. And so I respect a game that is asking me to memorize things to get through it. I've played a lot of those. I played a lot of like Bit Trip Runner. I've played Trials a lot, a little bit, where essentially it's what's the term I'm looking for? Like a
trial and error?
Trial and error. There you go. Like, you're just trying it. You failed. Okay, now you know a little bit more about what you need to do.
There you go.
That's fair. This took that away from you, though. This, basically, the game, in my opinion, was saying, okay, you did everything right, but you failed anyway, so now you have to start over from the beginning. And that is poor design.
So, what I went back with was that it is not poor design, it's a stylization of game that is kind of long since gone. It's an amount of difficulty. And so we're kind of talking about difficulty in video games today, sparked by our conversation in Cuphead.
Yeah.
And I spoke to Fox. I talked to Fox a lot about how I'm 8 years older than you? Somewhere in that area?
Approximately.
Yeah, about 7
to 8 years
Yeah,
older.
somewhere in that area. I had been gaming before Fox was
8
born.
years more than I have.
Yeah, and there were game systems that Fox never experienced, like the Sega Genesis, the NES.
That's not fully experienced. The first one I owned was an N64. I played a Genesis a lot. I played an NES a lot.
So
anyway,
there's just a style of game like the old Mega Man games or the old Battletoad games or things like that, where the difficulty is very high, but the levels are very short. And so part of the difficulty is learning things as you go and being punished for it and then having to go back through. And you were saying that, well, I don't want to have to go back through the whole level. Like even Shovel Knight.
Right.
I'm making a shovel gesture.
Made a shovel
now,
motion.
Shovel Knight is a similar thing. It's a retro game that's
Yeah.
supposed to have retro difficulty, but it had checkpoints.
Sure.
Because of its difficulty. But I said that this is a stylization that's meant to be an homage to original games.
Yeah.
But that wasn't satisfying to you. Why
No,
not?
I respect that idea. Like, Shovel Knight did it very well to me, in my opinion, because while it was difficult, they gave you checkpoints, but also you could destroy those checkpoints for a bonus amount of gold and make it more difficult.
Right.
There's a difference to me between recreating or paying homage to old school games, because they're making a new game. Cuphead is not a remake of anything. They're making new games. So they're not remaking anything. They are paying homage to an old, like a classic style of game.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think they did well was recreate the visuals, the control schemes, the, fast-paced nature of some of those games.
Right.
What I think and even if they did recreate the punishing nature of it in a faithful way, I think they should have updated that, because it's oh man, here's the thing. That's not even my argument. Like, I just think any game who does what they did is poorly designed.
And you made a pretty fair statement. You had said if those mosquitoes, instead of that grayish green color, were pink.
Or dark green.
Yeah.
Slightly different.
Different in a small way, in a noticeable enough way, that would have been fair.
Yeah.
Because you could see immediately those are different. And that was a very fair point.
Yeah, a term that we use a lot lately, especially with difficult games like Dark Souls or Dark Souls 2. I don't know. Well, side note, real quick. Don't call Cuphead a Souls-like game.
Please don't do that.
Just because a game is difficult does not make it a Souls-like game.
Right. That has a Souls-like game is where you go and you collect some sort of currency.
Sure.
And then when you die, you can use that currency to upgrade yourself, and then you can go back.
There's a lot to it. I would say that like the tone and like story presentation style of Dark Souls makes it Souls-like. There's a lot to it, but difficulty does not make it a Souls-like game.
No.
Difficult games have been around since games have been around.
Yes.
Anyway, there's a term we use, and you used it before, punishing difficulty. Dark Souls, I think, fits that real well.
Yes.
Punishment, when you punish somebody, it is because they have done something wrong.
Oh, is that why you do it?
Right, or you're just a bad person.
Yeah.
When I'm playing Dark Souls and I'm fighting the Asylum Demon at the very beginning, they've told me they've given me enough information and given me enough opportunities to practice combat to know how to fight him. So that when he kills me, if I don't notice that I'm supposed to run away through the door, if he kills me, that's my fault. He's very difficult. The difficulty spike is ridiculous right there, but I have all the tools at my disposal to be able to take him down. So they punished me for not being good enough to do so.
Right.
My problem with Cuphead, this specific issue, this point, is that I did not have all the tools to be able to accomplish what they wanted me to accomplish. So when I died and had to restart, that's not punishment. That's like sadism. That's just, I don't want you to be able to beat the level because screw you.
Right.
You should know what to do even though you've never been here before.
And it's a style of game, and this is kind of what I said before, it's a style of game and a style of playing the game that is kind of lost. A lot like Metroidvania stuff, like Metroid and Castlevania. They had situations like this where you'd encounter an enemy and for some reason they'd just be way stronger this time.
Yeah.
Or you'd come to an area and the floor would just fall out from underneath you this time.
Sure.
And you'd have to start back at the beginning of a level or an area. Mega Man, again, another one like this where it would just change on you all of a sudden. And it's frustrating and it's difficult. I admit those things wholeheartedly, but I would not call the difficulty part of, and again, depending on what it was trying to do, if this was not a game that was clear homage to an old style, then I would agree with you that it's poor design. But because this game's specific purpose is to honor that old style, I would say that this is actually part of the design. Now, could they have changed things to make it less difficult, and could they have done things to make that more clear? Yeah, sure. Again, that's a very good point. The point that I made to you before, and that I'll make again now, we've already discussed some of this, just so you guys know, is it's sort of like turn-based JRPGs.
Yep.
Turn-based JRPGs were something that were super popular in both your and I's probably golden age.
PS2
yeah, dude, like
was the greatest
golden age
ever.
of gaming. Games like Final Fantasy and Shadow Hearts and so
Dragon
many other,
Quest.
so many other great turn-based RPGs. But there came a point eventually when turn-based just went out of style.
Yeah.
And people just flat out didn't like it anymore. And if you were to try these days to take a turn-based RPG and put that in front of a 13, 14-year-old gamer, the vast majority are just going to say, this is dumb, this is boring, it's not the action. Why would I take turns in a fight?
For real, I told the students on the bus that I drive, I'm playing Final Fantasy 12, and they knew what it was. There were like two of them, or at least one of them was like, I think that's my dad's playing that. Like, are those hard? It's like, I mean, no. Like, they didn't really know what it was or understand it really.
And so if you were to try to present that, they might call that bad design. You're taking the action out of my hands. Why in the world would I put battle in a way that is turn-based? Like, why would I take turns hitting something? Like, that's poor design. It's not poor design. It's a different style of design.
No, but we're arguing two different things here.
Okay.
If Final Fantasy X had, for, the first 16 hours of the game, presented this battle system, but then you get to a certain point, and now if you press the battle button or the attack button, you choose attack, that actually means the system turns off and you lose your save progress. Like, I understand that's extreme, that's ridiculous, but
and then it kills your parents.
And plants evidence on you. No, that's extreme, of course. But what I'm saying is that Cuphead told me what the game, what should be happening, told me how I should do things, and then changed the exact same thing that I was doing. To me, that's not difficult, that's impossible. And when a game is impossible, it's not fun. A difficult game can be very fun. I played Crash Bandicoot, the remake. I played through all of it. I tried, there's the High Road is a level in Crash Bandicoot.
Classically known.
Yes.
For being very difficult.
I died probably hundreds of times. But I beat it.
Yeah.
Because I understood the mechanics. The mechanics were consistent, and it was predictable what would happen. It was predictable that if I touch this enemy, it's going to hurt me. And it was predictable that if I jumped on this color board, it was going to stay there in the bridge that I was running on. And if I jumped on this color board, it was going to fall. Those games that you're talking about, Mega Man, Metroid, Castlevania, I would say for the most part, if something new was coming up, or like a classic platforming thing where the platform is going to fall if you're on it, they would still signal to it would look slightly different.
Right, it'd be cracking it, or
always.
It'd be a paler gray.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There would always be a signal that, so yeah, it might not have been expected, and you might have to restart because you fell through and died, but you knew why. You saw that it was different and didn't anticipate what would happen. And so fair difficulty and unfair difficulty, I want to call lots of games unfair when it's my fault, but there is such a thing as unfair difficulty when the game is working against you rather than giving you the tools to succeed, but then making the difficulty very high.
Two things to that, and I think that at the end of this, because we're talking about Cuphead specifically right now, and I'd like to talk about a whole lot of other games.
Sure, yeah.
But at the end of this, I think we're going to get to the point that I think we would agree that Cuphead is a very difficult game. Mm-hmm. It could have done some things better, but what it tried to do was it tried to be difficult.
I give that game a 90 out of 100. Like, yeah, it's great. But I love the style and the comedy to it.
To what you were saying, first thing is that you talked about it, that it set a precedent and then took it away from you. You're half right there. If you had jumped on a mosquito and then fire came up and killed it, and then you died, and you came back to that same mosquito and it did not. If the exact same object did not react the same way every time, yes, that is unfair. But what the game did at this point is it set a precedent of, okay, now you know that at this point, the mosquitoes stopped dying. You got to come back to it now. We tricked you. We fooled you.
The last 3 of them in the level.
The last 5, yeah, that's right.
They were
the last 5, cluster. They don't do it. We tricked you, and that's rough, and it's tough. Now, if it took you half an hour to get to that spot, the level itself was a half-hour level.
Sure.
That would be dumb and unfair.
Oh, yeah, that'd be ridiculous.
But Cuphead levels are literally 2 to 3 minutes. And so the replayability and the speed with which you can get back to that spot as you begin to learn the pattern of the level is fairly quick. And so it's letting you understand, hey, we might throw curveballs at you every once in a while.
I get that. And a lot of me is just rage. I hate dying a billion times. But they also had set a precedent that if an enemy looks similar to other enemies, then it's going to do the same thing as.
And you're absolutely right. And they even did that with other things, like there are pink enemies in the game.
Yep.
And you can immediately know that you can combo your jump off of pink enemies. And there are different enemies, but if they will have a pink hue sometimes. Yeah. So there'll be like ladybugs, and there will be 6 orange ladybugs that jump by you, and then there'll be 1 pink ladybug, and that 1 pink one you know that you can combo off.
Right.
Yeah. And so you're right. I'm not going to say that they haven't set this precedent. My point is I wouldn't call it bad design as much as just old-fashioned design and frustrating design. Sure. And I get that you would disagree with that.
I do.
But let's kind of move on from that. At the end, I think that's just going to be an agreed disagree.
I don't want to talk about Cuphead anymore.
I hate that game.
I'm going to delete it. I haven't deleted it yet. I don't know why I haven't.
So let me ask you this then. Sure. How do you do difficulty well? Give me an example of difficulty done well in a video game. Okay, you're thinking. I'll give you mine.
Let me think of a game that exemplifies good difficulty.
To me, the perfect difficulty in a video game, and this is why I just talked about it, why it's one of the best I've ever played. Hellblade has the perfect difficulty in a video game that I've ever played.
Okay.
There is actually a setting, if you hit pause and go to difficulty, the default setting is, I think it's like variable or something like that. But whatever it is, the bottom line is the game sees how well you're doing, how much you're getting hit, how much you're hitting back, and it quantifies that, and it will range the difficulty depending on how well you are doing. And it does that by itself. So, I mean, in a game like Elder Scrolls, the difficulty setting is like 1 to 500. Like, there are such small ticks that you can put on the difficulty level, and you can set it at such a small thing. This is kind of the same, but it scales itself.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was very well done because its goal is for every single combat you have to be challenging.
Yeah, and I'm sure like different combat encounters later in the game, they're going to be more difficult.
Right.
But they'll still slide at their own difficulty. Like,
right.
It's more difficult as a whole, but could be less or more depending on where you are.
Where you are as a player.
Yeah, that's super cool.
And it does it very, very well. I could tell that there were times that maybe I was tired or out of practice or whatever, and I was getting hit a lot, and then the guys would just not attack as much a little bit, or they would fall in 1 or 2 less hits than normal. But absolutely what would happen is I would get back into the swing of things. I would start, learning again and getting my feel back, and the muscle memory would come back. And then the next few guys would very clearly be stronger and a little bit more combat.
Oh no, they're getting better.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's knock them down a peg.
Yeah, and so the whole game does this, and it does it so successfully. Every combat feels so intense. You never feel like you have complete control of the battle.
That's good.
Yes.
I have 2 games that are very good at difficulty for similar reasons.
Okay.
One of them is Dark Souls 2, specifically.
Okay.
And the other one is Pokemon, I guess
Snap?
X and Y. Yeah. Oh, man. The Dark Souls of the Nintendo 64. Pokemon Snap. No, both of them have their own difficulty. Their default difficulty. I think Pokemon X and Y is what I'm talking about. Or, X and Y was the last one I really played. Pokemon X and Y, there's something called the experience share in the game. So typically in Pokemon, when you have your team of 6, you go up against in a battle, you're fighting something, you defeat it. All Pokemon who faced it, who actually were in the battle at some point, get experience. Mm-hmm. The one who defeats it, I believe, gets more.
So, of your 6, the one who beats it gets full, and I think everyone else gets half.
Everybody who's in the battle. That's why you have your weaker one in your first slot, so it comes in, then you immediately switch it out.
Right.
You could turn on the experience share, and everybody gets experience. I don't think everybody gets full, but everybody gets it every single time you defeat something, whether or not they were in the battle at all. So they gave you an option. Do you want to play for it, normal difficulty or easy mode?
Yeah.
I played easy mode because Pokemon's not a game that I look for challenge. Pokemon's a game I want to complete. I want to complete the Pokedex. By the way, with X and Y, totally did. I'm pretty awesome.
Nice.
Dark Souls 2, very similar, where you can play through normal difficulty, or no, it's just normal. There's no difficulty choices in Dark Souls. Or you can wear a certain ring that when you die, you will not lose any souls. It will break, but it's actually pretty cheap to rebuild. I think it's like a couple thousand souls, which after a few hours is not a lot at all.
Yeah.
So basically, they give the player the option of making it a little easier. It doesn't break the game. It doesn't change how the game is played. All the enemies are still at their difficulty level.
Right.
But if you want a little bit less of a challenge in a way that is really kind of awesome, like in the game gives a reason for why it's easier.
Yeah.
It's not just a box you're checking at the beginning, easy or medium or hard.
Right.
It's, you have this magical ring, and there are lots of rings. It's just one of, and this is the result of what that one does.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you a reason. So they explain why it's easier and give you the complete option, give the player an option of making it more difficult or less difficult. And I think that's a very good way to accomplish difficulty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And so I think what I will say is, if I were to define what makes good difficulty in a video game, it's when a player feels appropriately challenged.
Sure.
Now, that's really, really hard to get, just because that's such a subjective thing. When a player feels appropriately challenged, and I even say appropriately challenged because when you play Dark Souls, you want it to be hard.
You play Dark Souls for a reason.
Right. But when you play Mario Odyssey, you want to be able to get through 45% of the game in one sitting.
It's nice when there are a few parts that are like, oh, actually, the difficulty spike right here. This is kind of cool. It makes you feel really good at the game when you have to do precision platforming or jump at the right time, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But most of it, you're just playing because it's a fun game to play.
Yeah. Or like Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse is a video game that my 5-year-old boy loves.
Huh.
And it's an incredibly easy side-scrolling platformer.
Sure.
But for a 5-year-old,
it's not
exactly right difficulty. So your goal is for the game to be appropriately challenging for the person playing it. Your game needs to have a way to scale it.
Yes.
And in Cuphead's defense, every level gave you an option of normal or simple.
Sure.
Now,
I always went with normal. I always
Fox's pride. Regular, Fox's pride.
That's the issue.
Kept him going to simple.
I feel like I'm not a casual gamer, and this is my fault, but it's a very common fault or I think thought process where I'm on easy. What am I for? Why? No. Most of the time, I choose difficulty based on how many trophies I get. If I can beat it on ultra hard and get all the trophies for every difficulty, then I'm going to try ultra hard.
Do that first.
Sometimes that works. Sometimes I just rage quit. I did that with Uncharted games. I'll play through it on super high difficulty.
You're dumb.
They're really fun still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so, your game has the way of doing that now.
Yeah.
The Souls games, even more so than just a ring, because that's actually a pretty big difficulty swap.
100%. Yeah.
And that's why it's not in the other two Dark Souls games. The first or the third.
Did they not put it in the third one?
No.
No?
Not that I know of, at least.
I didn't even use it in the second one, so.
But what they do in those is you can choose your class. Mm-hmm. And different classes make the game easier, like a sorcerer, not a pyrotechnics, pyromancer.
There you go.
If you go full pyromancer, there are some pretty solid spells.
Yeah.
And you can fight at a very long range, and you have this great opportunity to get big bosses into a funnel area and just shoot them a bunch.
Right.
Then a little bit below that is like a Dex Archer build. And then a little bit below that is like a quality build. And then you just keep going down. But if you want to go straight faith, and just make it real difficult, start with deprived and go a faith build. At that point, you have made the game itself is always the exact same difficulty.
Yeah.
But depending on how you start the game
interacts
and how you interact with the game, the difficulty will change.
Yeah. To me, you said that you have to feel appropriately challenged.
Right.
To me, difficulty a very, very vital part of difficulty is predictability.
Okay.
Not in the sense that the game has to tell me what's about to happen so that I have an opportunity to like dodge out of the way or do whatever, but that I have, like I said, talking about Cuphead, I feel like I need to have all the tools to succeed, even if it's going to be very difficult to do so.
What about in a Metroidvania where you literally don't have the tools to exceed and you have to backtrack to get a new ability or a new item or something?
You never
like
have
that?
to backtrack to get something that lets you progress in the story of the game.
In a Metroidvania, you do.
Metroidvania, you backtrack because you got a new ability and now you can open up new things.
That's what I mean. Like,
right.
Where
so if I have to pass by, if I started A, have to pass by B because I can't open it, and then I have to, because I got to go to C to get the thing that lets me open B, then in reality the story is A, C, B. It's not like A, oh, they screwed this up, now I have to go to C. No, that was how they designed the game. Okay. So I'm not backtracking, I'm just maybe physically going to a farther point and then going back on the path that I originally.
And that's kind of what I meant is like, so you don't mean literally physically backtracking.
No.
So then what do you mean by backtracking?
What I mean by backtracking is, I don't know, like you brought up the backtracking, like
having to start the level over again?
That's different also. What I mean by having the tools to succeed is knowing how to play the game and the game not... I want to go back to talking about Cuphead, but I'm not going to.
Oh.
I know, I'm not going to. I don't need to. I just need to be able to know how to beat the game or how to beat this next boss. Mm-hmm. Or when I'm facing that boss, to have all of the ability to do that. Like, have all the, to let it be. So, let's talk about Dark Souls again. It's going to come up a lot because it's a difficult game.
Right, yeah.
There are many bosses in Dark Souls in which you can beat them just fighting them with a sword.
Right.
But there are lots. Dark Souls 2 is the one I played the most. I played a lot of it.
Yeah.
A lot of them are immune to or weak to electricity. The game doesn't tell you that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't let you know, hey, by the way, there's not an NPC standing outside that's just like, I've heard electricity can beat this boss. That kind of thing, which is a thing that would happen in like a JRPG.
Yeah, exactly.
Who are you? Stop talking to me. Get out of here.
Do you hear about that boss? How do you know about this? It just resurrected for the first time in 2,000 years.
This is Elder Dragon Death.
You happen to be the guy to study the lore and you're a shopkeeper?
Why are you standing? Go fight him. Why are you not? You know how to beat him, apparently.
Here's my sword. Go.
Just because, okay, that being said, just because it's easier to kill the guy with electricity, or sometimes there's like a switch that changes the environment, makes it easier to get a better advantage point on him or something. That makes it more difficult to kill him, but not impossible. I can still kill him. I can still just fight him with my weak sword, and it might take twice as long, but I need to be able to fight him. It should not be a game-breaking thing if I don't have, electricity to fight this guy. So, unless it tells me that I need it.
So what you're saying is that the difficulty should not be within the actual form of the game, I guess, like in the rules of the game. The game should not change its own personal rules to be difficult, where sometimes a sword hurts them, other times a sword heals them, or whatever.
Here's what I'll compare it to. Okay. When you're a young child,
as opposed to an old child.
Sure. When you're a kid and you're making up a game and you're playing a game. We did this with Foursquare. We played a lot of Foursquare in elementary school, and it's a type of game where you got to know the rules of the game from the outset. When you're running out there, everybody who's playing, you start and you're like, okay, I can do double bounces, I can do, grand slams, I can do X thing. And then one kid comes up and he's the king now, and he does a thing that everybody else is like, no, you can't do that. Well, then this person's like, no, I'm the king. You can do that. It's fine. You're out. Like, Sure, technically he's okay, but that's not how the game works.
It's like Mao, the card game.
Sure, you didn't tell me that this is how it works, and now I failed because of it. That's not my fault. That's on the game.
Okay, that's a fair point. Yeah, and I'll say that. So yeah, and I definitely get what you're saying. And if games had a 2-minute reset like Cuphead had, then I would be less upset with it. But that's a fair point. I think
every game needs that. I don't care how long.
Well, like there's a card game called Mao, in which part of it is that the players literally make up the rules as they go.
Right.
I hate that game.
Sure. I mean, if I know that that's the game we're playing from the outset, then I should be prepared to fail because I don't know the rules. That's the point of the game.
You're gonna make my head pop right now because that's literally what Cuphead is.
Then no, it's not. Cuphead doesn't tell me to start playing. It also relies on your outside knowledge of how a platformer works.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so I'm going to interrupt you.
It gives you what the jump button is.
Right. I'm going to interrupt you here because this is part of what we were talking about beforehand. Is I just began at a different age of gaming as you, and so when I went into this game, I expected that 8-bit struggle of gaming. To me, Cuphead was nice enough to let you restart that level. And the original Castlevania, if you died, it said game over, and the game was over.
Yeah, and if you didn't have the code to get to that level you were on,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, if you died, sucks to suck. You start from scratch.
Should have got more lives.
Exactly. Or you should have just done better.
Should have been better at the game.
And I remember those times, and I expected that of Cuphead. Cuphead is more forgiving than those games.
I suppose.
It really is.
Yeah.
And so when I went into that and being able to just start the level over again, I'm like, it's not as hard as I thought it might be. But you approach this game with the knowledge of a different era of gaming.
Yeah.
Not that any are better or worse or anything like that. In fact, I would say that the original era is in a little ways worse just because...
in small ways.
Unforgivingly difficult sometimes.
And that's a product of the industry not being as robust as it is.
The games needed
back when you had a game that'd be the game that you put out for a couple of years, or it was largely for kids at that point,
right?
And kids didn't have income and spend they had to rely on other people's money, and if their parents didn't want to buy them another game a week after they bought that one, then you better hope that your game is replayable.
Yeah,
because if it's not, they're not going to like your game. Because I did everything. That's why Zelda, original Legend of Zelda was so good, because there's so many things in that game that are secret. You wouldn't know it. So you spend your days, trying to figure out, oh wait, I can be Ganon with the butterfly net or the bug catching net. Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna play it through again.
And there are so many in the original Legend of Zelda, there are so many secrets that are there that you literally would not know about unless you took the torch and burned every single bush
freaking
on
pixel
every
in the game
single screen. And so but Legend of Zelda is forgiving in that it had saves. It was one of the first games ever to have saves.
That's true. That's true.
So truthfully, I think that a lot of the difficulty in Cuphead comes from a different expectation of it, a different knowledge of the game going in, as well as, in truth, it's been a long time since games like that were made. And so it is a little unfair and unforgiving.
Yes. But
truth of the matter is that we're way out of time, Fox.
No way.
Yeah. So
I want to keep talking about Odyssey, though.
I know, right? Thank you guys for listening. Hey, let us know what your ideal difficulty in a game is. Mine was Hellblade. Ideal difficulty of a game. Everything felt tense. Everything felt fair. It was awesome. So let us know what your ideal difficulty in a game is. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for supporting. Right. And we'll see.
Tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends and enemies. Long lost loved ones.
Sure.
Yep.
Find them again.
Yeah.
And then at some point, let them know, hey, there's this cool podcast.
Yeah.
/YouTube channel. It's important.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. And remember, save games, save lives.
Bye.